Have you ever carried a quiet torch for someone? A secret admiration that lingered in your heart for years, even when you tried to convince yourself it was just a passing feeling? That was James. James had been working at the same marketing firm for almost 3 years when Elisa joined the company. She wasn't just another colleague. From the very first meeting, when she introduced herself with a warm smile and a tone that carried both confidence and grace, James felt something shift inside him. Elisa wasn't the kind of woman who demanded attention. She naturally drew it. Her calm presence in meetings, the way she carefully chose her words, her habit of listening deeply before speaking, these small gestures made James admire her even more. She was thoughtful, grounded, and effortlessly elegant, and James found himself noticing the little details. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, the soft laugh she reserved for jokes that were not really funny, the way she carried herself with quiet strength. At first, James tried to push those feelings aside. She was a colleague, after all, and office crushes often ended badly. But the more they worked together, the harder it became. He respected her, admired her mind, and genuinely enjoyed being around her. She made the monotony of office life feel little brighter, and he found himself looking forward to team projects just for the chance to collaborate with her. Eventually, after months of building up courage, James decided to do something about it. He wasn't a man who easily wore his heart on his sleeve, but the weight of his unspoken feelings became too heavy. One evening after work, as they were leaving the office together, James walked beside her, his hands clamming, his heart pounding in his chest. Elisa, he began, trying to steady his voice. I don't want to make things awkward between us, but I think I should tell you something. I really admire you, and I would like to take you out sometime, if you would be open to it. For a moment, Elisa looked at him with wide eyes, as though processing his words. Then she sighed softly, her lips pressing into a small, apologetic smile. James, you are kind, and I do value as a friend, she said gently. But I am in a relationship. I have been with someone for a while now. I'm sorry. The rejection was delivered with grace, but it still landed like a punch in James' chest. He forced a smile, nodded quickly, and said, Of course, I understand. No worries. On the surface, he played it cool, but inside, disappointment weighed heavy. It wasn't just about being rejected, it was about realizing that the person he had quietly dreamed about was already someone else's reality. From that day forward, James told himself to move on. He buried his feelings, masked them with professionalism, and settled into the role of being just a colleague. But deep down, the flame never really went out. After that evening, James told himself he had to pull back. Elisa had been clear, and he respected her honesty. The last thing he wanted was to ruin a friendship, or worse, make their work environment tense and uncomfortable. So, James buried the flutter of emotions he felt whenever she walked into the room. He forced himself to focus on his projects, to talk to her only when necessary, to keep things light-hearted and casual. And to his credit, he managed it, at least on the surface. Elisa, for her part, never treated him in any differently after his confession. She continued to greet him warmly in the mornings, laugh at his dry sense of humor during coffee breaks, and share small snippets of her life outside work. If anything, her ease with him made James appreciate her even more. She wasn't the type to make things awkward or hold someone's vulnerability against them. Their bond slowly evolved into a genuine work friendship. They were the kind of colleagues who would rely on each other during tight deadlines, who traded knowing looks during long, boring meetings, who grabbed lunch together when the rest of the team was too busy. Over time, James learned more about Elisa's life with her boyfriend. She mentioned him occasionally in conversations, never boastful, never overdramatic, just little details. We went hiking last weekend, or he's been stressing over his job lately. Each mention was another quiet reminder to James of where her heart belonged. And though it stung, James listened, nodded, and encouraged her to talk. That's what friends did. Still, there were moments when James caught himself wondering if Elisa truly felt as content as she appeared, wondering if fate had placed him in her orbit for a reason. Then he would chastise himself, reminding his heart of the truth. She is taken. Respect her boundaries. Don't be that guy. The years rolled on, and the crush became a quiet ache. James dated other women briefly, but none of those relationships stuck. Somehow, none of them matched the depth of connection he felt with Elisa, even though she wasn't his. Their friendship continued, steady and reliable. James became one of the people Elisa could lean on at work, someone she trusted with her professional challenges and everyday frustrations. And James, he treasured that role. It wasn't what he dreamed of, but it was something. Until one day, everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Elisa appeared at his desk, her face pale, her eyes red as though she had been crying. Without a word, she asked softly, "Do you have a moment?" James nodded, concern tightening his chest. They stepped into the empty break room, and that's when she broke down. Her voice cracked, her shoulders shook, and for the first time, James saw her completely vulnerable. "He left me," she whispered through tears. "After everything, he just left." In that instant, James felt his heart twist, not with triumph. He didn't rejoice in her pain, but with a fierce, protective instinct. He wanted to shield her, comfort her, be the steady presence she so clearly needed. And from that moment on, their dynamic would never be the same. Elisa's tears that afternoon were not just a fleeting moment of weakness, they were the beginning of a new chapter in her relationship with James. For years, he had admired her strength, her composure, the way she carried herself with quiet dignity, but now, standing before him in the break room, mascara smudged and voice trembling, she looked fragile, human, and heartbreakingly real. James listened quietly as Elisa poured her heart out. She explained how her relationship, which had once seemed so promising, had crumbled. Her boyfriend, Tom, had grown distant, critical, and cold. Arguments became routine, apologies shallow, and affection rare. She had tried to hold the pieces together, but in the end, he made the choice to walk away. I gave him everything, Elisa whispered, staring down at her hands. I thought he was my future, and now I don't even know who I am without him. James felt a deep ache for her. He wanted to tell her that she was enough, that anyone would be lucky to have her, that she deserved so much more than the pain Tom had left behind. But he bit his tongue. This wasn't about him, it was about being there for her. Over the next few weeks, Elisa leaned on James more and more. She would show up at his desk during lunch breaks, seeking conversation to distract herself from the loneliness. Sometimes they went out for coffee and after work, her voice spilling stories of heartbreak while he sat across from her, listening with quiet patience. James became the steady anchor in her storm. He didn't try to fix her pain with platitudes. Instead, he offered presence. Someone who heard her, someone who didn't judge, someone who reminded her that she wasn't alone. It was during one of those late night conversations, sitting on a park bench after an unusually long day at the office, that Elisa looked at him with an expression he had never seen before. Her eyes softened, her voice quiet, as if she were letting him in on a secret. James, she said, almost hesitant, I don't know what I would have done without you. You have been everything to me these past few weeks. James swallowed hard. His heart raced, but he forced himself to remain calm. You don't have to thank me, Elisa. You deserve someone who cares. She studied him for a long moment. Then, almost in a whisper, she confessed, maybe I should have seen it sooner, but I think I like you more than just a friend. The world seemed to tilt in that instant. James blinked, his mind racing to catch up the words he had dreamed of hearing for years but never truly believed would come. For a moment, he questioned it. Was this her loneliness speaking? A rebound? Or was this genuine? But when she reached out, placing her hand gently over his, the warmth of her touch silenced every doubt in his mind. This was the woman he had carried in his heart for years, and now she was looking at him as though he was more than just a colleague, more than just a friend. James' voice was quiet but firm as he replied, Elisa, I have felt that way about you for a long time. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, and under the dim glow of the street lamp, James allowed himself to believe, for the first time, that maybe, just maybe, his patience and quiet devotion had led him here. What he didn't know was that while Elisa's heart seemed to be shifting toward him, a shadow of her past still lingered, waiting for the right moment to return. When Elisa confessed her feelings that night, it felt to James like the world had opened up. For years, he had dreamed of hearing those words, and now here they were, spoken softly under a street lamp, like something out of the kind of story he thought he would never get to live. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. At first, James was cautious. He knew Elisa was fragile, fresh out of a breakup, and he didn't want to be a temporary comfort. But every time he saw the way her eyes lingered on him a little longer, or the way her smile grew softer when he was around, his doubts were drowned by hope. Their relationship shifted gradually, almost imperceptibly at first. A touch on the arm that lingered longer than usual, a late night text that began with, "Are you awake?" and ended in hours of conversation, small moments that blurred the lines between friendship and something more. One evening, after a particularly exhausting week at work, they went out for dinner. The restaurant was dimly lit, tucked into a quiet corner of the city. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, the conversation flowed easily. James found himself watching her with a mix of wonder and disbelief. This was no longer the untouchable crush he had admired from afar. This was Elisa, here with him, laughing, leaning closer, her gaze flickering to his lips. By the time they walked out into the cool night air, something had changed. They stopped just outside, neither moving to leave, caught in the quiet hum of the city. Elisa hesitated, then whispered, "James, I don't want to overthink this anymore." Before he could ask what she meant, she leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative at first, but when James responded, years of restrained emotions surged forward. That kiss wasn't just about attraction, it was the release of years of silent longing, of what ifs, of patience finally rewarded. From that night onward, there was no denying it. They were together. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of James's life. Elisa seemed to come alive again, her laughter brighter, her steps lighter. They fell into the rhythm of new relationship. Morning coffee runs, movie nights, secret smiles exchanged across the office. For the first time in years, James felt whole, as though all the quiet hopes he had carried in his heart were finally validated. Yet, beneath the surface of their joy, there were shadows James chose to ignore. Sometimes, when Elisa thought he wasn't watching, her smile would falter. Sometimes, she would go quiet at the mention of her past, her gaze distant, as though she were still tethered to something she hadn't fully let go. James told himself it didn't matter. What mattered was the present, the fact that she had chosen him, that she was here now. He had waited too long for this to let fear ruin it. But deep down, in the quiet moments when he was alone, a question dawned at him. Was Elisa truly his now? Or was he simply filling the void that someone else had left behind? For James, the first few months with Elisa felt like a dream he never wanted to wake up from. They slipped into an easy rhythm as a couple, one that felt almost too natural, as if it had been waiting to happen all along. The office, once just a workplace, became their private world. Stolen glances across meeting rooms, inside jokes whispered during long projects, the occasional brush of hands when no one was looking. To everyone else, they were colleagues, but to them, they were building something special in secret. Outside of work, their bond only grew deeper. Elisa began inviting James into corners of her life he had never imagined being part of. Weekend brunches, late night drives, Sunday walks through the park. He became her safe place, the one who held her hand when shadows of her breakup still haunted her, the one who listened without judgment when she spoke about her fears of being hurt again. James soaked it all in, every laugh, every lingering touch, every whispered good night text that made his heart believe he was finally living the love he had waited years for. For a while, it was bliss. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, cracks began to appear. Sometimes Elisa would grow distant, retreating into herself without a warning. On those nights, James would find her staring at her phone with a look in her eyes he couldn't quite read. When he asked what was wrong, she would wave it off. Just tired, she would say, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Other times, her mood would shift suddenly, leaving James confused. A small disagreement would spiral into an argument, or she would grow uncharacteristically cold, only to apologize later with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I'm sorry, I just don't know what's wrong with me sometimes." James tried to ignore these signs. He told himself it was normal. After all, healing wasn't linear. She had gone through heartbreak, and it would take time. He wanted to be patient, to be her anchor. He convinced himself that love was about standing strong, even when the waters were rough. Still, at night when he lay awake, doubt crept in. Why did she sometimes seem so far away, even when she was lying right beside him? Why did he catch her staring off as if her heart was someplace else? But then she would turn to him, kiss his cheek, and whisper, "I'm so glad I have you." And just like that, his fears would dissolve into hope again. For James, those 5 to 6 months were a blur of love, longing, and unshakable devotion. He believed, with everything in him, that they were building something real, something lasting. What he didn't know was that shadows from Elisa's past were already stirring, and soon the man she thought she had left behind, Tom, would reappear, shaking the fragile foundation James thought was unbreakable. It began innocently enough. At least, that's what James thought. One evening, After a long day at work, Elisa seemed unusually restless. Her phone buzzed more than usual, and every time it did, she would glance at it quickly before tucking it away, as if she didn't want James to notice. James asked if everything was okay. She brushed it off with a smile, but her hands fidgeted, her eyes darting in ways he had never seen before. The truth came 2 days later. Elisa confessed that Tom, her ex, had reached out. James' heart sank, though he tried to keep his expression neutral. He had always known that Elisa's past lingered like a ghost in the background, but hearing that ghost had found its way back into her life felt like a blow to his chest. He just wants closure, Elisa said, her voice soft, almost apologetic. He says he regrets how things ended. He wants to explain himself. James swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed at him to tell her to not meet Tom, not to open the door that had already been closed once. But he loved her, and he didn't want to come across as controlling or insecure. So he nodded, forcing out the words. If that's what you need to do, I trust you. But inside, he felt a storm brewing. A week later, things began to shift. Elisa grew distant in ways James couldn't ignore. She laughed less, responded slower, and seemed lost in her own thoughts even when she was with him. Their conversations felt heavier, their silences longer. One night, when James reached for her hand, she pulled away absent mindedly, her eyes fixed on her phone. That was the moment he realized Tom wasn't just a ghost anymore. He was very much alive in Elisa's world again. When James finally confronted her, Elisa broke down. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed that Tom had been apologizing, pouring his heart out, telling her he still loved her and wanted another chance. I don't know what to do, she admitted, her voice trembling. I thought I was over him. I thought I was ready to move on with you. But hearing from him again, it stirred something in me I can't ignore. Those words hit James harder than any rejection ever could. It wasn't just that she was torn, it was that despite everything they had shared, despite the love he had poured into her, a part of her still belonged to Tom. James felt betrayed, though Elisa insisted she hadn't done anything wrong. I haven't gone back to him, she said. I haven't cheated. I just, I don't know what my heart wants anymore. But for James, her uncertainty was its own kind of betrayal. Because when someone truly loved you, there shouldn't be, I don't know. The man who had once been a distant shadow was now a looming presence, threatening to shatter everything James had built with her. And deep down, James knew the foundation was already cracking. James couldn't ignore it anymore. Elisa's absence wasn't just emotional now, it was physical. She began staying late at work, claiming she had extra deadlines. She answered texts hours later, her replies shorter, colder. When James asked to meet on weekends, she often had excuses: family obligations, exhaustion, vague plans she didn't care to explain. But James wasn't naive. He could feel the truth pressing against him like a blade. One Friday night, after Elisa cancelled their dinner last minute, James decided to confront her, not through suspicion or spying, but face to face. He needed honesty. When she opened the door to her apartment, her expression said it all. She looked like someone caught between two worlds. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her lips trembled as if they were holding back words she wasn't ready to speak. Elisa, James said, steady but pained, you need to tell me the truth. Are you seeing Tom again? Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating. Elisa broke down almost instantly. Tears slid down her cheeks as she covered her face. I'm sorry, James, she whispered. I didn't mean for this to happen. I thought I was ready for you. I thought I had closed that chapter. But when Tom came back, everything I tried to bury resurfaced. James' chest tightened, his hands curling into fists at his sides. Not from anger, but from the helplessness clawing at him. So, what am I, Elisa? A distraction? A placeholder until he decided he wanted you again? She shook her head violently. No, it wasn't like that. I cared for you. I still do. But I can't lie to you anymore. I still love him. I never fully stopped. The words cut deeper than any blade could. James felt his heart fracture, piece by piece, as reality sank in. For years, he had carried a torch for Elisa, waiting, hoping, believing that if he loved her enough, she would see him as more than just a friend. And when she finally did, he thought it was fate. But now he realized he had been living in borrowed time. She had never truly let go of Tom, and James had been building dreams on someone else's ruins. So that's it, James asked it bitterly. You are choosing him over me? Elisa sobbed harder, reaching for his hand, but he stepped back. I don't want to hurt you, James. You don't deserve this. You deserve someone who gives you everything. But I can't give you that. My heart, it still belongs to him. Her honesty was brutal, but it didn't soften the blow. It only cemented the betrayal. James left that night, his world collapsing behind him. The woman he had loved for years, the woman who once said she liked him back, had chosen the very man who had once broken her. And James was left not just heartbroken, but betrayed by the cruel truth. Sometimes, love isn't about who's been there all along. Sometimes, it's about who someone can't let go of, no matter how much it destroys everyone else. James walked home that night in silence, the city lights blurring into streaks as his vision clouded with unshed tears. Every step felt heavier than the last. His chest was hollow, yet burning at the same time, a strange contradiction of numbness and agony. The apartment that once felt like his safe haven now suffocated him. Everywhere he looked, he saw traces of Elisa, coffee mugs she used during work sessions, a sweater she left behind, even the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. It was unbearable. For days, James struggled to function. At work, he wore a mask of composure, but his eyes told a different story. He had given Elisa not just his love, but also his trust, his patience, his belief in second chances. And in the end, it hadn't mattered. His thoughts swirled endlessly. Why wasn't I enough? Why go back to the one who hurt her when I was here, steady and constant? Was I only a rebound, a temporary shelter until the storm of her heartbreak passed? The questions were knives, each twisting deeper than the last. Meanwhile, Elisa and Tom were seen together again. Colleagues whispered when they spotted them at a nearby cafe, sitting close, smiling faintly, as if trying to rebuild what once was. To James, it was like watching someone mend a broken glass with hands already cut and bleeding. He wanted to hate Elisa, he wanted to despise Tom, but the truth was cruel. He couldn't. His heart, loyal to a fault, still ached for her even after the betrayal, and that was what broke him the most. One evening, James sat on his balcony, staring at the horizon as the city lights flickered to life. He realized something profound. Love, when it's one sided in effort, isn't love, it's self destruction. He whispered to himself, almost a vow, I will never let myself be an option again. If someone can't choose me fully, they don't deserve me at all. Elisa's choice had left him shattered, but in that brokenness, James found clarity. She had chosen her past, and James had no power to change that, but he had power over his future. Still, as much as he told himself he would move on, he knew the scars would linger. Betrayal doesn't heal clean, it leaves a mark, a reminder of the trust once given and how easily it was discarded. Stories like James and Elisa's are painfully common, yet each time they hit differently. How often do we see someone give everything to a relationship only to be met with betrayal? James was loyal, patient, and emotionally invested. He believed in the sanctity of love, and yet his devotion was not enough to hold someone whose heart was still elsewhere. From a common person's perspective, this story is a reminder of two harsh truths. First, love requires alignment of values and emotional availability. No matter how much one person gives, if the other cannot reciprocate fully, the relationship is on unstable ground. Second, trust and honesty are non negotiable. Elisa's confession was truthful, yes, but her initial deception and inability to fully close her past caused irreparable pain. Many viewers may see themselves in James, someone who loves wholeheartedly, only to be hurt by someone who wasn't fully committed. Others may see themselves in Elisa, someone struggling with past attachments, unsure of how to navigate new connections responsibly. The story urges both sides to reflect. Emotional honesty, clear boundaries, and respect for others' feelings are crucial in any meaningful relationship. Ultimately, the takeaway is this: if you find yourself investing your heart, ensure that the person you are giving to it is ready to fully receive it. And if you are the one still holding on to the past, confront it before you enter a new relationship. Because heartbreak often isn't caused by love itself, but by divided loyalty and delayed closure. If this story resonated with you and you want to hear more real life experiences of love, betrayal, and human emotion, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories that explore the complex truths of relationships and the perspectives of people just like you.